Buckle up, buttercups, because in today's episode of the Knitting Podcast, I have 4 sweaters on my needles that I cannot wait to share with you. So if that sounds like just your cup of tea, grab a cup of something cozy and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Wool Needles Hands Knitting Podcast. My name is Taylor, and I will be your host. It is so good to be with you guys today for a knitting podcast episode. I had not posted a podcast episode last Sunday, and so it's really nice to be here today, and I have lots to share with you. So I hope you're cozy, I hope you're comfy, and I hope you're ready to get started. But before we do that, I want to cover a few things first. Now, as many of you know, I am the owner and dyer of Fiber for the People yarn, and the Fiber for the People shop update is coming this Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That is not my typical shop update day, but it is going to be just this week, this Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I am creating a collection of solid colorways inspired by the photo that you see here. I will have this available on a gorgeous 100% alpaca sport weight yarn, as well as a merino silk cashmere yarn. I had said previously it was going to be a kid silk mohair yarn, but I kind of made a mistake in my ordering, and so we are working with a merino silk cashmere or merino cashmere silk gorgeous yarn. So those are gonna be the 2 yarns that are coming to the shop on Wednesday. So definitely check that out. Mark your calendars. Head over to fiber.for.the.people on Instagram or fiberforthepeople.com to learn more. I also want to let you know that there is new merch in the Wool Needles Hands merch shop, including the Quiet Rebellion tee that you see me wearing here. I wore some new merch in the last episode that I published to the channel here, and I have this one. I received kind of a bunch of things that I ordered in the mail, so I'm sharing them all with you right now, but definitely check out what's new in the merch shop. There are some really fun button pins that you can pop on project bags over there. I have 2 collections that are kind of Wool Needles Hands forward with little references from the podcast and various things like that. So definitely check it out. It's an excellent way to show your support for the work that I'm doing here at the Wool Needles Hands YouTube channel. And while you're over there, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. I send out a monthly newsletter at the beginning or end of every month, depending on where it falls, as just kind of a monthly recap of where I've been in my knitting adventures. I also want to mention that another way to show support for the channel is by offering me a super thanks, and you can find that down below the video on YouTube. It's a quick way to send a monetary donation to the channel. All of the proceeds that go to the super thanks go back directly to creating and producing content here at the Wool Needles Hands YouTube channel. It's another way to help me keep this going consistently and kind of make a thing out of this so that it's viable for me and I can keep it going for years to come. If you choose to leave me a super thanks, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means a great deal for me. Thank you for helping me keep the lights on here at Wool Needles Hands. All right, guys, let's get started. I am cozy. I am ready. I have my tea. I even have some flowers. These are Esperanza yellow bells. I've planted them in several different places around our home. They grow beautifully here in our climate. And I had some really gorgeous ones blossoming really tall out in our backyard that I needed to prune back, and I wanted to bring them out here for something sunny and kind of happy. It's a cloudy, dreary day today, which I love, but this is just kind of a nice little, tip of the hat to summer, if you will, feature for today's video. So little happy yellow flowers never hurt anybody. Now, I have so much to share with you. I have been knitting up a storm since we last sat down to have a proper knitting podcast. My knitting mojo is on just full right now, and I love that. But I also want to start this by saying, and I mentioned this on a couple episodes ago where I shared with you some tips to kind of manage your creative enthusiasm so you don't get overwhelmed. But so I want to tell you that this is not typical for me. I do not typically knit this much at one time. I typically don't get this much knit in a short period of time. My mojo is just running rampant right now. So if you are not in this place, if you are not producing this much knitting in the time that you have, that is fine. That is what's working for you. So please know this is a lot. And I'm not going to give you this disclaimer every time I share lots, of knits on my podcast, but I just feel like we're moving into fall and it's just a good reminder to have that you're going to see people knitting a lot more than you are. And that's going to ebb and flow in all of this. So just, do you and do what feels right for you. This has just been what has been good for me, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. I think that I'm going to start with what's on the top here first, only because it's because it's on the top. That just makes it easy. I will remember you. Now, this is a sweater I kind of went back and forth on a previous episode of the podcast. I was sharing with you a bunch of yarn I had, and I didn't even bring it. Hold on. So this is the yarn. It's by Isager. It's called Eco Soft. It's a 56% alpaca, 44% organic cotton. It's a really lovely, airy, blown yarn. You might be able to see that there if I get it up close. I had a bunch of this. I still have a bunch of this, and I was going back and forth between sweaters that I wanted to knit with this yarn. And I had thought that I was going to do the Eclair, but then I ended up settling on the Un sweater, and I'm drawing a blank right now on the designer. So let's go ahead and find that really quick. Okay, so this is the Un sweater by November Knits, which is, pardon me, November Knits. Where's her name in here? Oh, I wish that, I know that we all have like our handles, right? But I wish people would include their name much more front and center. This is Anne Fiscum Sunday. And this is the Un sweater. And I absolutely love this sweater. So I cast it onto the Un sweater with this yarn because I saw a sample or a project that somebody else had knit with this yarn, and it was gorgeous. And this is all I have so far. So we're like yokes on yokes on yokes today, guys. So here we are. The Un sweater. This is what I have so far. Is very little of the yoke. I did the short row shaping, and now I'm just straight on to increases for the yoke. And I'm not going to talk a ton about this right now because there's not a lot here. But what I am going to talk to you about is this neckline. Now look at how wide that is. Okay. This, when you look at the photo, and I'll pop a photo up here, you can see that it is an open neckline. It doesn't sit high and tight. And with kind of like the style of this being really squishy, that's okay with me. If you watch the podcast, you know I like a nice high and tight neckline. I don't expect that from this really, but I'm definitely not getting that from this. And it's causing me a little bit of pause. So I'm looking at it here. Now, I'm not upset about it. I don't think it's bad. It looks like a really wide kind of funnel neck, and I actually really love that. It has some really nice Audrey Hepburn vibes. What I'm kind of concerned about is as I block this out, and because there's a significant amount of alpaca in this, I'm a little concerned it's going to become too wide. But I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to keep knitting and see as that yoke develops, and as I'm able to pull it over my shoulders and try it on, I'm going to see what happens to it. And I know that's kind of a lot of work to do with something you're not 100% about, but I'm okay with it because I figure even if it does stretch out a good deal, it looks like it's going to be pretty workable and actually really, really nice. So I'm not too concerned. And if worse comes to worse and I'm worried about it stretching out over time, I can put something in the collar here to kind of give it a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Reinforcement, if you will. So that's the only concern I really have now. How am I even wearing this? Wait, hold on. Okay, it goes like this. Yeah, there we are. So here's the raglans, because otherwise, like, how cute is this? And this color is gorgeous. It's like a really easy throw on, cozy sweater. It's gonna have that deep like slit in the side. Oh my goodness. So that's kind of a thing. Usually when something like this happens that's causing me to be like, maybe that's not right, my mojo on that project goes like down the drain. But that's not happening here, and I feel like that's my gut telling me like, go with it, see it through, because it's probably fine, because my gauge is fine. And so, I don't know, we'll see. But this is my Un sweater. I love it. This is by November Knits. I'm knitting this in Isager Eco Soft. Such a gorgeous yarn. How pretty is that? Love it. It's on 2 needles right now just so I could try it on, and I ran out of yarn. So I'm going to attach a new ball and carry on with this. And I really do love this. And I really recommend this yarn. If you have yet to try blown yarn, you have lots of options out there. I have not tried all of them, but I can definitely tell you that the Isager Eco Soft is just really gorgeous. Really love working with this. Okay, on to the next. Okie dokie, let's move on to my little black t-shirt. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know I've been working on this for a while, and it's kind of funny because in one of the last episodes of the podcast, somebody commented about how if I'm I think the phrase was the black t-shirt I'm dragging my heels on. And I just recently read this and it made me chuckle because I was dragging my heels on this project, and I talk about this a couple episodes ago because it's black and it's hard to like knit on black things, and it's a whole thing. If you would like some tips on how to knit with dark yarn, definitely check out my most recent video before this one. I share some with you there. However, what I did here is I relegated this project to be knit. Does that make any sense? I reserved the time I spend at the arena watching my boys play hockey for knitting this sweater only. It's the only time I work on this sweater. And the reason that works for me is because I don't need to look down. I don't look down at my work, and I don't need to do that here because it's all stockinette. I can focus on what my boys are doing, and I can keep my hands busy at the same time, and I don't get kind of bored and lost in the black stitches because I'm telling you, I really love this and I want it finished. So that's what I've been doing. I've been working on this at the hockey arena, and the nose itchiness is going to just be an issue. I'm sorry. And I finally made it to the end of the body of the sweater. So right now I am knitting the hem of the sweater. Now, it seems like it's rather cropped, and I know it's going to be hard for you to make out any detail on this sweater because it's so dark. We're just going to have to go with it, and you'll have to trust me. I'm setting that down there. Now, I'm knitting this to be not super cropped, but I'm knitting it to hit me right at the top of my jeans. I wear jeans that come right over my belly button and sometimes even higher than that, and this will hit me right at the top of my jeans. I don't tend to think that worsted weight or even DK weight sweaters look good tucked into pants. I think there's lots of puckering there. The fabric is just too thick. So I don't want to have to do any kind of like a front tuck or a French tuck or whatever with this. I want it to sit right at the top of my jeans, maybe just going over that, like, you know, the hem at the top of my jeans ever so slightly. So that's kind of what I'm going for here. And the way that I determined the proper length is by measuring it against a shirt that is off the shelf that I purchased at a store that hits me in just the right spot. So I'm going for that, giving myself a little room when I block it, and I'm hoping for the best. And I think it's actually going to work out really well. So the hem, I'm doing that now. I'm doing about 1 inch of ribbing down here, and then I will carry on with my sleeves about the length that you see here, and it's going to be just lovely. And I'm knitting this in a yarn that I actually really recommend. It is from the company About Strings, and I picked this up on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Lazy Wool. It's a DK weight. It's a DK weight 55% extra fine non-superwash merino wool, 45% cotton. This little ball is 50 grams, 109 yards. I bought a bunch of these, and that's the only thing I'm using for this little sweater, and I love it. I love the drape. I love the feel. Everything sticks to it, so it's definitely going to be a lint roller project. I'm going to have to do something because it picks up all the little fibers, and because it's black, you can really see it. But other than that, I love it. The stitch definition is really perfect. I wish I could show you. I don't know. Let's see. Can you see the stitch definition? Hold on. There. Can you see how pretty that is? It's really a lovely yarn. I really do love it. So that is my little black t-shirt. I'm making good progress on it. I know it seemed like I was dragging my heels before. I am no longer dragging my heels. I'm working on this intentionally. And every time I go to the arena, we're going tonight for a hockey game. I'm going to get more work done on it, and all is good. So I love this project, and next time I see you, I'm almost convinced it's going to be finished. We'll see. Oh no, I lost a little flower, a little blossom. Okay, so this is the Esperanza yellow bells. Aren't they pretty? They're like happy little flowers, and they grow so well here in our, climate. I love them. They don't smell like anything. A lot of desert flowers tend not to smell. I wonder what the, scientific reason is for that, but they're beautiful. Okay, Let's go ahead and move on to this next one because you have not seen this. This was a frivolous cast on. How dare I frivolously cast on something new when I have this and that and the other thing that I'm working on? Well, it's because I can do what I want, because I am my own crafter. And I'm really happy that I did. And I blame Chelsea from the True Lane podcast 100%. Okay, so I was watching Chelsea's podcast, True Lane podcast, and she was wearing this, I want to say it was like a mint green and red color striped sweater. And I fell in love with the sweater. The colors were pretty, but it was the sweater overall and the construction that I loved. And then when she started talking about it and mentioned that it was the Stripe Hype sweater by Veronica Lindbergh, which that's a pattern I'm very familiar with, it kind of was like, hello, that's something I've been eyeballing and wanting to cast on for a while. And so I watched this whole episode of the podcast and she talked about that sweater and a few others, and I was so inspired. It just looked so pretty. I loved the wide stripes. I just loved the whole look of this sweater. And another thing I really loved about it is it has that modular but seamless construction that I talked about when I shared this pattern with you guys. So this is sweater number 18 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I talked about this on the last proper episode of the podcast 2 weeks ago, and I love this. It has this like modular construction. It's not it's top down, but it's not a raglan construction. It's not a circular yoke. You do lots of picking up of stitches and it comes together in a very structured way, but you're not sewing pieces together in the end. It's really a beautiful thing. And I'm finding lots of these types of designs are appealing to me right now. Well, this is one of those. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the yoke of a Stripe Hype sweater by Veronica Lindbergh. And I love it. I love it so much. Okay, what are we going to say about this? I knit the color twice. The first time I knit it, I did the twisted rib, which is what's called for in the pattern, and I bound off with just a standard bind off. The pattern calls for an Italian bind off. I chose to be lazy. It's not lazy if you choose not to do an Italian bind off. I'm just saying that because that is exactly why I chose not to do it. I was being lazy. I bound off using just the traditional bind off method and I was not happy with it. I felt like it looked, like, you know, when you bind off stitches, you get kind of like that harsh edge. And sometimes, you know, a lot of times it's really fine. It's not that noticeable, but when it's a neckline, it can tend to be more noticeable, especially when it's really front and center. And I just wasn't happy with it. It didn't look as nice as the photo, obviously, because the sample was knit and bound off with an Italian bind off, all of this. So I decided I was going to go back and I was going to do it again. Now, when you do the collar of this sweater, you're picking up stitches around the neckline and you're adding the collar. So it's kind of like an applied neckline. So I just took out the stitches that I picked up and started all over again. And the second time that I did it, I did not do twisted rib. I just did a 1x1 rib, which I really, really prefer here. And then I did the Italian bind off in that contrasting color. And you guys, how pretty, sorry, it's focusing on my face. How pretty does that look? Nice and clean and polished. Ugh, so good. I love it. So I'm so happy that I decided to do that. It really wasn't a lot of extra work because this section, I think you knit to like 1 3/4 of an inch and then you add that contrasting color and then you bind off and it happens really quickly. But what a nice neckline that is. It's a little snug, but I can fit it over my head. So let's give this one a try because I don't know, let's look at it. So here we are. Look at that. Now you see right here, this is always I feel like it's way more noticeable on the camera than it is in real life. But that's where I started the neckline. That's like the starting point. Why did I put it in the front and center? You know, well, I don't know, but I don't want to go back and fix it right now. If I decide down the road it bugs me, this is an applied neckband, I can go back and fix it. It's not a huge issue. And what you're seeing, it's probably pretty noticeable. It is really not that noticeable in person. It's amazing what the camera does. But look at this high neckline. Look at how nice and high and tight. It's going to relax a little bit when I block it, but I love that. I love that it's kind of right up there to the neck like that. It looks really neat and tidy. I love this. This looks like I'm wearing like really tall shoulder pads because I can't stick my arms through the armholes. But this is it. So I'm happy with this. It definitely just adjust and we're back. So yeah, so this is my stripe hype and I'm loving it. Let's talk about the yarn because you guys are gonna love this. This is being knit in yarn I had in my stash. The main color, which is this lovely mustardy brown color, that's actually what this is called. This is Patons Classic Wool Worsted in the mustard brown color. Now you may recognize this yarn from a sweater that I was knitting, I don't know, about 6 months ago, the cable knit sweater. It was called like, I think it was the Classic Aran sweater by Yarnspirations. I'm putting that on the back burner and I'm moving towards potentially frogging it because I was just not enjoying knitting panels of cables. And I haven't really decided one way or another, but I know, I mean, I guess I have decided because I'm kind of commandeering the yarn for this project here. So that is what I'm using to knit this. This is a worsted weight, gorgeous 100% wool yarn in this really lovely brown mustard color. The pattern calls for a DK weight yarn, but I managed to get gauge with this worsted yarn, so I wanted to go for it because I loved the color. And I'm pairing this with what I have left. And I'm just going to hold this up for just a second before I tell you what it is, because I think it's always funny when I show it and then I share what it is and everybody's like, what? That's what? This is Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool, one of my favorite budget rustic yarns. It's 100% virgin wool with lots of lovely lanolin in there. This is the oatmeal color. I had a big hank of this, but this is all I have left for this sweater. So I need to go to Joann's and pick up some more. It's very readily available in my area and I love this. I have a whole series where I knit an improvised what I call Franken sweater with Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. If you've been watching this channel for the last year, you know how much I love this. So these are the two. My printer just sprung to life. So these are the two colors that I'm using for this sweater. How beautiful are they together? Love it. How budget friendly. I think that a ball of this Patons Classic Worsted, I want to say it's like $6.99 for a ball of this, and this is 194 yards. And then you can get like, okay, so if you're not familiar with Fisherman's Wool, this is what it looks like when you get it in the store. This is the natural colorway, and the one that I have here is the oatmeal colorway, but it's put up like this in this really giant hank. And this is 465 yards. And you can get this in the store, I don't know, maybe like $9. I think they sell it for like $13.99, but it's always on sale if you get it from Joann's or something like that. And you can get it for far less than that. So that's what Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool looks like when it's in its put up state. And this is what I have left and I need to get some more. But overall, this is going to be a really budget friendly sweater for me because that's really inexpensive yarn, but it's fantastic 100% virgin wool yarn. The Patons is 100% pure new wool. This is made in India, and I want to say that it's made from yarn that it's sourced from Turkey, which is quite common for Lion Brand. And I love the Lion Brand company. I think that they make really fantastic budget-friendly yarn. So that's what I'm using for my stripe hype sweater. How pretty is this, guys? I'm also using these really cute Paper Rock Scissors needle protectors or needle stoppers on the end. How funny are these? I got these on Amazon. I'll link to them down below. They're just these like rubber stoppers that go on the end of your needles, and there's a rock, a paper, and then another one that's like scissors, and I have that over on my other project, but they're just kind of holding my stitches on my needles. So cute. Okay, so that's my stripe hype. Let's go ahead and move on to my next sweater that I have on my needles. Before I do that, I want to mention that I've been managing to get this progress on these projects because I'm knitting with milestones in mind. So I'm kind of giving myself bench markers, I guess you could say, for what I want to complete on each one of these projects before moving on to the next. And for this one, my most recent kind of benchmark was this collar. Before I could move on to the other sweater, I wanted to get that collar the way that I wanted it with the Italian bind off and all of that. And because I did that, I am now working on this one. So let's go ahead and move on to that because I want to talk a little bit more about this modular construction with this sweater here. So this is the sweater number 18 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which I really love the design. I love the texture. I'm knitting this in a woolen spun yarn, and I'm still developing my opinion about woolen spun yarn. I love how lightweight it is. I think it's nice and soft, and it has a really nice rustic texture. And when I say rustic, I really mean rustic. I don't mean that because it has a scratchy feel. I mean that because the yarn has this like imperfect nature about it. That's just kind of what it's like. It's very rustic and artisanal, I guess, if you could say something. That's just kind of what it's like. And this is what I'm using. It's by Kelbourne Woolens. It's Lucky Tweed, 100% merino, woolen spun yarn. And that's what I'm using to knit this. So it's a really lightweight sweater, but it has this very rustic feel. Pardon me. That's just the best way I can describe it. It's not super soft. It's not super drapey. It's very rustic. Hey Siri, what's a better word for rustic? 79 synonyms and antonyms for rustic. Country, rural, bucolic, pastoral, picturesque, verdant, Arcadian, backcountry, homespun, homey, natural, agrarian. It's very agrarian. You know, I like bucolic. The definition for bucolic. Of or relating to shepherds, pastoral. I think I found the new word for rustic, and that's bucolic. And I think that the texture of the sweater contributes to that a little bit. Like you can see all that really lovely texture in there. Lots of nooks and crannies, lots of opportunities for air pockets, which I think is nice with a sweater like this. It's going to be quite insulating, but I really love it. So I finished my neckline here. I did a rolled neckline, which I really love. I just love the way that that looks. And then I did the rest of the yoke of the sweater. I combined the front and the back, and my last benchmark for this was to pick up stitches for the sleeves, which I have done. Typically when you knit like a top-down sweater, especially something that's a raglan, the progression of the project usually goes collar, yoke and raglan increases, body, hemline, and then your sleeves. But because this is that modular construction, and what I mean by that is that you begin at the base of the collar, you cast on a certain number of stitches, you begin increasing for your shoulders. Wait, is that correct? No, I take that back. Yeah, no, that's correct. That's correct. You knit the whole back panel first, and then you get to a certain point on the back panel, and you then come around and you pick up stitches along the shoulders, and you do it one at a time. So you pick up stitches along one shoulder, and that's going to be your front panel. I know that it's not focusing because for today, like just the camera's not coming to the job today. Camera's off duty. So you pick up stitches for one shoulder, and then when you're done doing that and you're creating your shaping around your collar, then you come over here, you pick up stitches for the next shoulder, shape around your neckline. And then once you've done that, you then connect the two fronts together. You add some stitches for the base of the collar over here, and then you continue working down the rest of the yoke. Once you get down to a certain point on your yoke, you combine the front and the back together, and then that becomes your set-in armhole, like your sleeve hole, essentially. So that's how these work, and the way I'm describing that probably makes it sound way more confusing than it actually is. I can't even tell you how much I have enjoyed this process. I enjoy the way that these are constructed. I think that it's different for me because this is my first experience with this kind of construction. I think it's interesting. It gives the sweater a really interesting shape. You get that kind of set-in drop shoulder. It looks like a set-in sleeve, but it's actually going to drop a little bit and be kind of like a set in down here. It just gives you experience with a new construction and a new style of sweater without having to go through the process of seaming pieces together in the end. It still is, for all intents and purposes, a seamless sweater. And I think that that's so great because I think so many of us consider, you know, a top-down seamless sweater being a circular yoke or a raglan sweater, and that's not what this is. So I really love this. I appreciate this. I definitely see myself knitting many more of these styles of sweaters in the future. I've already got my eyeballs on a few options, but I really, really enjoy this. So that's what this is. Sweater number 18, loving the texture, really loving the color. It's just beautiful. I would put this on for you, but I know my needles, well, my stitches will come flying off my needles. This is where I have my other paper, rock, scissors stoppers. How flippin' cute are these? Look at that. So cute, so fun. It's so quirky. So yeah, that's what we got here. Sweater number 18. And I'm just knitting away on these, happy as a clam. I think it looks good with my complexion. It kind of matches my eyes. This is what color my eyes are. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. So sweater number 18. But for me, and today, it's sweater number 4. Where's the yarn that goes with sweater number 4? It's sweater number 18. It's not sweater number 4. And it's by my favorite things knitwear. And it's gorgeous. So that's where we're at. I have a lot going on and I love these projects. I really, really do. I hope that this brought some inspiration. Now remember, this is inspiration, not expectation. You don't need to knit as many sweaters as I have here, unless of course it brings you joy, and that's exactly what you want to do. And I hope that whatever it is that you're working on, whether it's knitting or crochet or whatever you're doing, I hope you're enjoying yourself, and it means so much to me that you would take this time and spend it here with me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you have enjoyed yourself, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It really does help. Definitely subscribe if you haven't done already and click that bell icon so you can be notified anytime I upload new content here on the channel, which is every Wednesday and every Sunday. And until I see you again for Wednesday's episode of the Midweek Ramble, happy knitting, happy making, happy whatever it is that you're doing. Take care, be well, and I will see you soon. Bye.